In the whistling winds of the trenches, there is one singular thing that is spoken of at campfires. Something so horrifying that a lot of the troops dispatched to the Levant barely believe it exists, though the stories of its existence are just common enough that it makes it all the more tangible. Sweeping through the unshielded towns and hamlets of no man's land, a plague, a disease ushered up from hell itself. The stories say it is a thing of pure death, as if it were created to be the antithesis of life, created by something that had no love for the idea of creation and its continuation. The Black Grail, a miasma conjured from the pits of Naraka, made to do one thing and one thing only: spread, infect, and turn those afflicted into shambling half-alive monsters, who work to serve under a new master, the Lord of Flies, Beelzebub. The disease, this cloud of flies and rats, is so dangerous that it melts the world around it, destroying all things holy. Entire villages reduced to oozing sludge and shambling ghouls, now bloated with disease and parasites. But what if I told you even that can be avoided? If properly spotted, people can flee their homes to safety. Some, through sheer luck, left their town on business before this calamity. Some are warned by traveling soldiers of New Antioch to take shelter in holier places. But here, my dear listeners, is the tragedy of survival. If you happen to be one of those individuals, you must not ever return. For that is one of the greatest weapons the Black Grail has, its unpredictable nature. But also, in that sense, this is where the true horrors begin. Villagers, kindly and pure, return home to their houses now that the plague has been removed from the area. Their village, after being ritually blessed and cleaned, oh so pure, oh so perfect. They try to return to a normal life. In that, there is an issue. Under the soil, in the crops, in the wood of the buildings, and even the very bedrock of this village is a curse. Beelzebub didn't just burn down the crops, it salted the earth so they could never grow again. But in an insidious way, the curse doesn't affect everyone. Not at first. People return, and it may take weeks, months, or even years, but eventually it will happen. People will start to feel hungry. It starts small. Maybe you order some extra dessert when normally you never would, or maybe you desire to have an extra drumstick of chicken with your meal. It's only natural. You just survived a major calamity, and you might as well prove to the holiest of holies that you're not beaten or broken by what happened to your village. But that's only the start. Slowly but surely, the portions you ask for in celebration get larger, and more people begin to feel the same. Hunger becomes the common talking point in the village. Acquiring food is the most common talking point at town council meetings. The livestock is butchered rapidly and sold off. Entire cattle being sold off to feed an entire family who gather in hungry masses in order to get their food. Some people so hungry that they can't even wait to have it be cooked, eat it raw in the street the second the butcher so much as hands it off to them. Some becoming ill from the consumption of raw meat, others finding out that it is a lot easier to consume, and they honestly prefer it in terms of expediency. But the livestock at this rate can only last so long. Word travels to nearby villages who deny the hungry of this one entry. They see them as cursed. With the livestock gone, the grain gone, all rations, fruit, and organic material gone, this has brought on a state of emergency. The hunger only gets worse. The village grows silent save for the weeping and moaning of those screaming about the pain and aching bellies that they are now nursing. This is when someone, eventually, will start to lower themselves, eating rotten food out of garbage heaps, consuming scraps of organic refuse just to stave off the hunger. But nothing is enough, and soon the slide begins to get a little bit slippery. A decision is made, one more taboo after another. Beloved pets are the first to go, consumed with tear-slicked eyes as they are devoured, but it is anything to stop this hunger. This is when the changes begin to be noticed in the village villagers who are most affected. Pustules, open sores, pale skin, and sunken eyes. But worst of all, additional mouths begin to appear on the bodies of the hungriest as their bodies begin to become gaunt and long. Those who go without eating become more and more corroded, more abhorrent, so in fear of becoming what these people are slowly transforming into, one more desecration after another is enacted. Cannibalism, the weak, the sick, the elderly, and even in the most desperate of situations, children go missing, all to sate their hunger. The town is no longer populated by people. It is filled with monsters obsessed with one thing and one thing only: single-minded consumption. Whatever food they can find in order to stave off their endless pain they will take. But sooner or later, a call will echo out almost silently throughout the village, now turned abattoir. As if spoken on the wind, this circus of monsters now feels the call to attack other villages nearby, to consume the flesh of the living, as a leader will appear amongst these creatures, usually a giant hulking abomination of mouths and teeth. This massive creature, simply known as a Great Maw, will guide them to assault other villages, not to spread like the other sicknesses of other Black Grail viruses, but to consume. Like an unchecked wildfire, many of these people still carrying a concept of who they once were, racked with guilt but still desiring the end to pain, because if they are left to starve, they eventually devolve into nothing more than unthinking beasts who patrol no man's land alone, screaming and looking for food. This is the true horror of the Great Hunger, Beelzebub's cruelest joke played on humanity. Hello everyone, I'm Arthur and it's Halloween. I thought I'd give you a bonus video today to talk about something I've been a fan of behind the scenes for quite some time. The Great Hunger, a sub-faction to the Black Grail that the cool folks down at Creature Caster are introducing to Trench Crusade. The story as to how this kind of collaboration happened between me and them is actually really funny, like so funny I actually have to bring it up, as I actually ran into the lead lore guy for this at the airport probably right before they were about to debut the majority of what they were doing. It was kind of weird because I just met up with him and then we just started to talk shop about this, and yeah, it's just kind of really funny that it happened like this. But I am very much a fan of these fellas and wanted to discuss them, and how, if you thought the Demonculaba was gross, oh, wait till you see the shit they got here. They aren't paying me. I literally just love their products and have bought minis from them in the past before I was even a YouTuber, and I just want to support them. But we are now going to talk about the Great Hunger. What is it? And why is it so dangerous and so on? Well, you do know how it technically works from that little story I told in the beginning. It is simply put a curse put on the land, something that will stay dormant until people start to populate areas that the Black Grail has swept through. It infects people and thus begins to propagate the viral form of the Great Hunger, turning it into a virulent disease. The Great Hunger, as the name would suggest, makes the infected experience intense hunger pains that can drive the most normal men insane. It's such a fun twist on the whole gluttony thing, because maybe I'm just an idiot, but I love the Black Grail. But what does disease have to do with anything involving gluttony? I mean, famine, I guess, and bugs consume you afterwards. I don't know. But the Great Hunger is taking this to a logical extreme with some of the grossest enemies I've ever seen in fiction. It has the psychological terror of the more you eat, the better you feel, but the hungrier you get, but the less you eat, the more you change and lose your sanity. Trust me, starvation is not the worst fate here, but yeah, we'll get there. There is this creature we will cover later called a matagot hag. Yeah, it's probably the worst thing I've ever read in my entire life, but we'll get there. In general, it's a curse that plays a bit of a not so funny practical joke on people who decide it was wise to go back into their homes where the Black Grail went through at one point. And then, you know, whoopsie-pupsie, roaming bands of lunatics that are afflicted by it barely stay in coherency long enough to be considered a warband. Like, the idea of cannibalism is pretty common here, so they usually attack and eat each other. But you know what? That's a good enough segue for me to start talking about the various different monsters of this faction. But before I do, allow me a chance to do something really quickly. Did you guys know that I have a second channel? Like, I'm not joking. I know a lot of you have heard about this, but don't know what it is. But yeah, it's called Arthur After Dark. I'm gonna put a link to that in the description, and I want to make more videos on it. I make horror videos on there, just videos about games, movies, random shit that happened to me. That time I got chased by 3 people with flashlights. That was kind of funny. But yeah, if I am making this video go live at the right time, then literally the second this video goes live, another video should go live on that channel. I've been experimenting on it for quite some time now, a little over a year. I've been off and on posting on there because I wanted to expand into other formats that I'm very passionate about. And honestly, I know more about horror history, and horror gaming than I do about Warhammer 40k. So make sure to check that out in the description, because I'm going to be plugging that for the next couple of videos. And I've got some pretty cool stuff on the way. Also, I'm doing this video because I want to help out the guys at CreatureCast who are currently doing a crowdfunding campaign on my mini factory to raise funds to produce more miniatures as well as promote the Great Hunger. I'm going to be linking that in the top of the description, as well as putting that in the pinned comment down below. Once again, they're not paying me to do this. I'm doing this because I really want to support them, and they've just been so kind to me up to this point. I'm just really into their game, and I really want to print off some other minis once they're available. So yeah, enough me chilling myself, as well as promoting some people who definitely deserve it more. Let's get into the lowest of the low for the Great Hunger, and that would be the Grail thralls. Those infected with both the Black Grail and the Great Hunger usually just become Grail thralls, nondescript shambling horrors. They can be bloated and filled with worms, or emaciated and gaunt. The thralls of the Great Hunger do have a unique origin point, sort of, in some spaces, but we'll cover that later, maybe. Well, sort of. Most Grail thralls are simply humans who were once infected by the Great Hunger and didn't really become much. Their thin frames carry no nutrients, while their bloated and distended stomachs contain food from their most recent kills, and very often their stomachs rupture open to have their organs dangling behind them, which is, you know, very on point. They shamble in a way that makes them seem too slow to be much of a threat, but there is the problem. When they get within range and they smell food, they can move with a swiftness that, although nothing too insane, catches most people off guard and is the reason why they're a very effective terror weapon. There is another way Grail thralls are made other than just being affected, but we will cover that. There is a second type of thrall though, and that is the fly thralls. Those who are infested with the flies of Beelzebub. These are more so marionetted corpses used as hives for a massive buzzing and stinging infestation of bees and bugs and wasps and bitey things. They only wish to do one thing, which is infest and consume everything around them. Basically fill more bodies of uninfected people with bugs to make more bugs. The transformation into a fly thrall is apparently so painful that it is actually known to cause psychological damage to anybody around them. Their bodies split and writhe with insectile wings that crush the spine of the infected, and they flap around. Now, you might think, oh, so they buzz like a fly around, and you think it looks cool, but no. I think it's one of those cruel practical jokes that Beelzebub did, where no, they actually look kind of weird and awkward. Like, they don't look like some kind of fast-moving insectile predator. They are just pretty ungraceful and very awkward. Fun fact, when they die, they explode, sort of. Basically a death spasm spraying the disease of the Great Hunger all around them in one final fuck you to the world. Moving up in the lethality of the pecking order, there is the desiccated husks. They are people whom took better to the Great Hunger, probably because they either had a tapeworm or they got infested by some Beelzebubian worms, which I hope is a word used at least once in the fiction of the Great Hunger, or all of Crusade, I guess. As their insides are mostly hollowed out, they're called a desiccated husk for a reason. You wouldn't be able to really tell by looking at them, because their body is now partially disassembled and held together by these massive parasitic worms. They are actually able to maintain some degree of sentience and intelligence, as they are essentially the bodyguards of the elites and ruling class of this version of the Black Grail. They are also responsible for collecting the food and meat for the rest of the horde, although not entirely so. I should also note that we're working together in small bands is kind of a thing that they do, but don't confuse this for camaraderie or brotherhood, because the second one falls a little bit short in their duties to bring the beef to the boys. They are usually eaten pretty fast. Prowlers are fun as hell. See, prowlers are that end stage of what I was referring to before in the little story. When someone is infected with the Great Hunger, if they refuse to consume, to eat, and they wish not to perform any sacrilege, or they're just not able to find enough food, Beelzebub would refer to this as mildly annoying. So not being able to give any level of grace to anybody, they tend to mutate and manipulate their body, making them hungrier and making them lose their sense of self, and also turning them into a warped monster with many mouths. Not entirely of human make and model, I should note. If you've ever watched John Carpenter's The Thing, you should probably get a lot of where the visual references came from, but by fucking God, look at these models. They are so beautiful? I guess. If you like weird shit, they're beautiful. I do, so I like them. They're pretty cool. So the Prowler is what happens when someone loses their mind completely and becomes nothing more than an unthinking beast. They roam in ravening packs of monstrosities, eating whatever they find. It's kind of awesome. On to the more noble side of things, the actual elites. Firstly, we have the Butcher Knights. They are mostly intelligent and in control. Sure, they are still under the thrall of Beelzebub and do his bidding, but the thing that makes most of the forces of the Great Hunger scary is the fact that they're aggressive and constantly in a hunger-induced frenzy. They're berserkers because they just want to eat you. They don't care how, so they'll claw at you, and not with a degree of finesse. Butcher Knights, on the other hand, are smart, cold, and actually pretty martially trained. Able to use conventional weapons and albeit corroded and rusted armor, they rip things to pieces when in small bands, and another interesting fact is that they don't just fight to satiate their own hunger. They're one of the main food preppers of the Horde, thus the name Butcher Knights. It's not just, because they're cool and they're sick as all hell and they butcher their enemies. No, they actually do just, cut shit up. Like good butchers, they serve the beef on time, baby. Now, with most Black Grail hordes, at their head is usually a Lord of Tumors, someone enraptured by the diseases given to them, someone who doesn't know pain, but instead knows nothing but blissful euphoria. Great Maws are the same type of lord, but for the Great Hunger. They are massive creatures of rotted meat and teeth. They are often the most dangerous of any horde, being the center and willing to run into combat face first to get fresh meat. They even usually have tubes hooked up to their mouth that feed them a constant stream of rotten meat from their backpacks. They do this so that they don't have to worry about too many mutations, because, there's always the fear of becoming a prowler at some point. They actually also have a weird compulsion to seek out other Great Maws from other Great Hunger hordes to goddamn eat them, because once they have finished, they become significantly stronger and larger, and it's seen as kind of this communion with Beelzebub. It's a very religious expression of faith, the Great Hunger consuming itself and all that. Probably my favorite model of the line is the Gregory Gula. It resembles a gaunt and noble figure from a distance, with its body so very thin and its loose skin draping over its frame resembling that of holy robes. But the closer you get, the more you realize how horrific this creature truly is. It is seen as a divine entity, a creature that the Great Hunger worship, which is cool because the Gula is a monster that constantly suffers. A beast of almost pure instinct, it is intensely hungry, and the more it eats, the hungrier it gets, making its suffering never ending. These things are walking corruption. They spread the Great Hunger by simply breathing and can rip anything to pieces in basic combat. It takes a lot to kill them, and the reason why is because, through practical means, if you put a bullet in its head, yeah, their body will collapse and they're stop moving. And that's when you think you've killed them, but then it gets worse, because if they're not burnt to ashes, they will cocoon themselves, becoming a bloated husk that spreads a gaseous version of the Great Hunger, poisoning the air around them. And if something meaty or fleshy walks into them after a certain period of time, they can resurrect after absorbing them with a new level of strength, their body completely repaired, which is fucking cool to think about. Okay, so one more guy to talk about and it's a singular entity, I do believe, and that is the Sin Eater of Villapinche, of which I'm almost certain I am pronouncing incorrectly, is one of the more interesting things to come out of the Great Hunger, as it is a false prophet in the truest sense of the word, masquerading the face of a priest, while in fact, the priest itself is actually a false front, a mask to lure in the unsuspecting, simply looking to pray to their Lord and Savior, only to find out that, and if I may quote the words of the lore writer, it is basically just a fucked up anglerfish, as the true body of the priest is this gigantic betentacled maw with a chair on top of it, and it basically consumes as many people as humanly possible. I mean, it is the Great Hunger after all. And there is no other models or units to talk about at all, ever. Okay, fine, I'll talk about the Matagot Hag. I'm not going to hold back here. The Matagot Hag is one of the most disgusting things I've ever read about in a fictitious setting, so if you were queasy up to this point with the weird discussions of cannibalism, bro, take a step back. This is going to be the worst of it. But yeah, so Beelzebub hates babies, but mostly it hates women who can get pregnant because Beelzebub just wants to kill everything in the universe ever, so the idea of new life being brought in is kind of an affront to everything he likes. So a woman who conceives a child on the soil cursed by the Great Hunger is just gonna go through some of the worst shit imaginable. Oh god. Final warning, but yeah, you'd think that with their bodies burning through calories and starving constantly, the woman wouldn't be able to bring the child to term, but no. With the Great Hunger, the woman will birth a perfectly healthy looking child, but the baby will be speaking in a voice that no human, let alone a child, should be able to possess, singing praises to Beelzebub. But it's also screaming that their mother should consume them. And with the Black Grail being what it is, she is likely half insane and completely starving at this point, so she obliges and eats the demon spawn in an act of sin so horrible that she basically damns her soul for all eternity and actually makes God wince a bit at how gross it is. But she's now cursed to become something known as a Matagot Hag. Over the course of 7 days, as a way to mock the whole "and on the seventh day God rested" section of the creation myth, because as I remind you all, Beelzebub hates anything that has to do with creating and not destroying. The woman will grow swollen and impossibly gravid. She will have her gut distend and pulse with black veins before rupturing and birthing Matagot Hag specific Grail thralls. That is the second way thralls can be added, or just these weird gribbly eyeless monsters can be added to the horde, which they can be considered Grail thralls. And yeah, her body will then sew itself back up and heal before birthing more and more. This horde of gnashing creatures are barely human in appearance and protect their mother with the fervor of a child protecting their mother. This leads to them carrying her around like a disgusting procession. It is also stated that when a Matagot Hag is nearby, soldiers begin to hallucinate, hearing the cries of their own mothers, and almost in a trance-like state. The weakest-willed soldiers tend to go towards it and usually get ripped to pieces and fed to the Matagot Hag so that the birthing process is not interrupted. This is horrific, gross, terrible, and also I should note that I think my insurance premium went up because of the therapy bills I have to rack up to describe this. Okay, well, sorry, Brett. I gotta talk about... Yeah, Brett's my therapist, by the way. I like Brett. Brett's cool. The Great Hunger is such a fun idea, as it is a perfect example of disease logic. A virus enters your body and wishes to propagate itself. It is a life form, after all. Most small-celled life forms just want to make more of themselves. But by propagating, it damages the host, and thus makes them weaker, meaning that they can propagate more. Eventually, after killing the host and running out of fuel, they begin to eat themselves until there's nothing left. Consume until there's nothing. That is kind of what the Great Hunger is. A fire that burns down the whole world and then dies up because there's nothing left to burn. It's the ultimate weapon of Beelzebub, and I love that. The goal is for it to kill everything and then consume itself, leaving no life, and that's what old Bub wants. I think Taylor, the lore guy, did a great job, and all the models are absolutely beautiful. You should pick them up and support Creature Caster. Once again, I'm going to be pinning a link to this in the description, and I want you all to support them because they are wonderful people and they make great models. For now, I hope you all enjoyed this video. and I hope you all have a wonderful Halloween. Make sure to let me know what you think of the Great Hunger in the comments and what you want me to cover next for Trench Crusade. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me. With your help, I'm able to do this extra video and also make a second channel because I've got so many videos in the pipe for that one coming up soon. So yeah, check out the second channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful Halloween.